Hello everyone, welcome for today's lesson for AVID. So we're going to do an acrostic poem activity. We're also going to go over WICOR, and also we're going to do a critical reading / marking the text. So that's what we're going to be doing for today's AVID lesson. So here, an acrostic poem, word puzzle, or other composition in which certain letters in each line form a puzzle. So that's what an acrostic is. Each group will be assigned, person, because this is your independent learning, will be assigned to create an acrostic poem together, and also refer to the example on the right, which for some reason the slideshow didn't work, so this is just zoomed in from my screen. This is the example. See, this is acrostic over here. It's about one behavior, norm, and or expectation. Choosing a word or phrase that begins with the assigned letter. Use positive words to phrase your statements. So this is WICOR. It's writing, inquiry, collaboration, organization, and reading. Okay, by the way, for today's critical reading activity, we're going to be reading an article about ancient Persia. So, this is going to be our very first marking the text. Well, actually, we're not going to mark the text, but just write any question that arises and just write it down on your paper. So we're going to... What do you anticipate seeing in an article about ancient Persia? I anticipate learning about the culture and the history. So we're going to read the article one section at a time. You can write any question that you have on your paper from reading an article, or head to the next slide. So we will mark a text on ancient Persia. So here's the article over here. Ancient Iran, historically known as Persia, was the dominant nation of Western Asia for over 12 centuries. With three successive native dynasties, the Achaemenid, the Parthian, and Sasanian, controlling an empire of unprecedented size and complexity. This exhibition, the latest in the Getty Museum's program, The Classical World. This is an article from a museum. In context, explores ancient Iran's far-reaching exchanges with Greece and Rome. The works on view are vivid expressions of political and cultural identity, showing how these superpowers each constructed their self-image and profoundly influenced that of their rivals. The Greeks first came into conflict with the Achaemenid Persians in 547 BCE, when Cyrus the Great captured Western Asia Minor and present-day Turkey and subjugated the Greek cities there. Mainland Greece, too, struggled against expanding Achaemenid rule, but emerged victorious from a series of invasions in the early 5th century BCE. In 334 to 330 BCE, in response to many years of hostilities and the continuing Persian domination of the Greek cities in Asia Minor, the Macedonian king Alexander the Great led his army into Asia and conquered the Achaemenid Empire, establishing Greek control over the region for more than 2 centuries. During the 2nd century BC, However, the Parthians reclaimed the lands lost to the Greeks, and by the beginning of the 1st century BCE, the Romans replaced the Greeks as the major force in the Mediterranean, becoming the new rival to Persia. In AD 224, the Parthians were overthrown by another Iranian dynasty, the Sasanians, who inflicted many defeats on the Romans before restoring a balance of power that endured until the Arab conquest in AD 651. Okay, Persian King Cyrus the Great, renowned by the ancient Greeks and Iranians alike as an illustrious conqueror and skillful ruler, created the largest and most powerful empire of antiquity. In swift succession, he captured Media, the dominant kingdom of Iran, then Lydia, which controlled Asia Minor in present-day Turkey, and finally Babylon, from which he inherited authority over most of the Near East. Cyrus' son, Cambyses II, added Egypt to Persian territory, and under Darius I, or Darius the Great, the Achaemenid Empire, named for his ancestor Achaemenes, reached the height of its power, claiming allegiance from more than 20 nations, stretching from northern Greece to the borders of India. These lands are administered as semi-autonomous provinces whose individual religions and traditions were respected as long as tribute was paid to the king. Darius drew on this mixture of diverse cultures to fashion the distinctive court style seen in the art and architecture of his grand capitals at Susa and Persepolis. In this image over here, foundation deposit of Xerxes, which is the Diva inscription, which is an like artifact. So yeah, the Greek cities, long established on the western coast of Asia Minor, persisted Persian demands for submission. A revolt there in 499 to 494 BCE was followed by Persian invasions of the Greek mainland in 492, 490, and 480 to 479 BCE. Against the odds, the combined armies of Athens, Sparta, and their allies were able to defeat the much larger Persian forces, and pride in these victories became an integral part of Greek self-identity. Although hostilities between Greeks and Persians in Asia Minor continued for much of the 5th century BC, Greeks were highly valued as soldiers, doctors, and artists in the service of the Persian king and his satraps, which are provincial governors. The Achaemenid king Darius I ruled from 522 to 486 BCE, erected a palace complex at Susa in southwestern Iran, the ancient capital of the Elamites, who had inhabited the region for over 2,000 years before becoming vassals of the Persians. As at Darius's imperial capital of Persepolis, the palace decoration at Susa synthesized traditions and techniques from every part of the empire, reflecting its scope and cultural diversity. A trilingual inscription found these lists from the rare materials and specialist craftsmen brought all the subject nations to create the complex, although the architecture is poorly preserved today. Colorful glazed wall panel survive, depicting lion griffins, royal sphinxes, and rows of palace guards. They were made by skilled artisans from Babylonia and present-day Iraq, where there had been a long history of working in this medium, but the images themselves are in new Achaemenid court style. So this is the name of the artwork. Looks very nice. Okay. Around 510 BC, Darius I began to build a new capital, Persepolis, also known as Takht-e-Jamshid, in southwestern Iran, which would serve as the ceremonial and courtly center of the Achaemenid Empire. Darius and his successors constructed magnificent palaces, treasuries, and a large audience hall, Apadana, on an enormous terraced platform intended to convey a sense of grandeur and awe. Brightly painted relief sculptures showed the Persian monarch surrounded by his guards and courtiers while receiving delegations of subject peoples bearing tribute. Medes, Elamites, Babylonians, Lydians, Egyptians, and Greeks, among many others. This carefully planned composition glorified the king as a ruler of vast multi-ethnic empire under the protection of his patron deity, Ahura Mazda. And this is another ancient Persian artwork. The Achaemenid Persian kings drank from ornate gold and silver vessels at their banquets. These valuable objects also served as symbols of power and status, brought to the king as tribute and presented by him as gifts by his loyal courtiers. A distinctive court style was created during the reign of Darius I, with vessels of characteristic shape that included drinking horns and wine jars, called Rhyta and Amphorae in Greek, decorated with figures of mystical beasts, shallow cups, and bowls. Philae, or the drinking vessel of choice, typically ornamented with embossed lobes and stylized floral patterns. As you can see over here, this is the description of this over here. And we are gonna stop after this section because this is a pretty long article. So we're gonna continue with this article in another day after this section. So, gems and coins from the Western Achaemenid Empire. Personal seals carved from semi-precious stones were used widely within the Achaemenid Empire, impressed into clay as a form of signature. Those produced in Asia Minor, present-day Turkey, display a hybrid Greco-Persian style and typically depict images popular with the Achaemenid aristocracy, including scenes of warfare and hunting. Coinage was invented by the Lydians in the late 7th century BCE and was soon adopted by the Greeks in the region. Although coins did not circulate widely in the Achaemenid Iran, they continued to be minted in Asia Minor under the Persian authorities, alongside issues by Carian, Lycian, and Greek cities there. Just before 500 BC, the Persians introduced a new gold coin bearing the image of the king, which the Greeks called a daric after Darius I. Other Achaemenid coins bear portraits of the satraps who governed the various provinces of the empire. And we're going to finish this lesson here for now. But I hope you took notes about it. I'm going to go to the top if you want to. I'm going to scroll down very slowly if you want to take notes. So we're going to give you a little bit more time. You can pause the video if I'm going too fast. So I hope you took plenty of notes. We're gonna finish with this later. So I hope you enjoyed today's video, and we're gonna see you in the next one. Bye.